Hello, and welcome to the podcast that knows, despite the push notifications we get all day telling us that the world is burning down around us, there is still good being created in the world, and we want to highlight it. Whether it's nonprofit leaders solving the world's biggest problems or a small business owner trying to make the world better with a great product or service, we want to highlight the ideas and strategies behind the good that's being made. So without further ado, you're listening to Creating Good, a podcast by Rogue Creatives hosted by me, Matt Barnes. Let's go. Hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode of Creating Good with Matt Barnes. I'm Matt Barnes, Matt from Rogue. Everywhere online, you can find me. So excited about today's podcast. We got a lot of really cool stuff going on. I want to encourage you to go to creatinggood.co and take the pledge at creatinggood.co/pledge for Creating Good. Just basically taking a pledge that says you're going to use what you have to create good in the world. You get a badge you can put on your website or on your social media. Do it for your business, do it for yourself, whatever it might be. This is just a movement. We're not looking to raise money. We're not looking to, anything. We really just want to encourage people and inspire people to use what they have to create good in the world because we need it now more than ever. And today we've got a guest who is doing just that in an area that is, I think, difficult. Now, I'm a person who has several businesses that I'm running, and I love that. But one of the hardest parts of running a business is human resources, HR. It's knowing there's so many laws, there's so many rules. You want to make sure people are treated well. You're still getting the work done. You're getting the work done without taking advantage of people. There's just so much work that goes into that, that when you start a business, sometimes you're not really aware of how much effort that is going to take, and you want to do it right. If you're like me and you want to create good in the world, you also want to create good in your company, in your culture, in all of that. And our people are our greatest resource. They're 100% our greatest resource, and we want to make sure that we are we're facilitating them using what they have to create good as well. So Candice, she is the founder of Fortress and Flourish, a innovator in the field of human resources. She brings a unique blend of expertise and credentials. She's got a master's in human resources and labor relations from Penn State. She's got a rich background in anthropology and philosophy of religion. Her work focuses on transforming organizational cultures to support sustainability, equity, community, all through regenerative practices. It's really interesting. Really, it's using the world of work in a more healing kind of betterment kind of way, and I think we all could benefit from that. So, I'm really excited for you to hear what Candice has to say. She's genius at this, and I learned a lot from hearing from her. Candice Elliott, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited for our conversation.
Me too. You've definitely, I'm looking over your resume and everything that you've been doing, and you bring definitely a different viewpoint than I think anybody you've had on the podcast so far. So I'm excited.
That's awesome. I love that.
You paused there for a minute. I'm like, is she going to be like, wait, I don't know how to take that? I'm glad you took it as a compliment.
No, I just think about I recently had a birthday and I was thinking back over, my life and all the things that have happened, and there's quite a lot. So
yeah. It looks like it. And happy birthday, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah. So if you said you had listened to some episodes, so we start off with a segment we call 3 random questions.
Yeah.
We take many random questions, and then we randomly choose 3. So here are your 3. Are you ready?
I think so.
Okay.
Let's do
it. I try not to judge your answers too harshly, but we'll see how it goes. All right. Favorite dessert? Start with an easy one.
Chocolate cake.
Ooh. Okay. Describe more.
Like dark chocolate cake.
Ooh.
Like a very moist, like luscious cake is kind of what I'm thinking.
We're getting some good adjectives. I like this. Or as my wife would say, descriptive adjectives, which I'm like, that's redundant, but Yeah. She was like, yeah, yeah, that is. All right. So chocolate. Now you this isn't one of the questions, but I want to dive in here because this is important. Are you more of a dark chocolate person than a milk chocolate person?
Yes, I am more of a dark chocolate person. Yeah.
So I do judge that answer, but I'll let it slide because everyone around here fights with me constantly about this, though I did forward an article to my team yesterday about how they were like dark chocolate. They're finding like cadmium and lead in it, and it's causing health problems for people. So,
Oh,
you
well,
know,
that's good to know.
yeah. So watch out. Even the organic stuff, they said. So I don't know. Seemed like a reputable source. It was a little vindicating for me.
So now I have to watch my chocolate source on top of all the other things that I have to watch where the food comes from.
Right? How many things can we really be expected to worry about?
Yeah.
There's so many things that I'm like, I genuinely, I want to know about, and I want to support, and I want to, and then be aware of what. It's so hard to keep up with it all.
It is.
The podcast does help. Okay, next question. If you could have any superpower, which one would it be?
I would want transportation, like teleporting kind of power.
Ooh,
I would want to be able to go anywhere in an instant. That would be so cool.
So
and
just-
like
you like-
literally there are no locks to any doors either, because you can just get in anywhere.
Just like, yeah. Just snap your fingers and you're there.
Yeah.
I like that. That would be fun. I'm always torn between that and flying, because like flying you could get there too, but there's something which is the experience. But I feel like after a while you're like, I just want to be there.
Yeah.
Like after you get over the novelty of I get to fly.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And also, well, I would love to fly like a small plane and learn how to do that. I think that would be really cool. But I hate traveling by big giant aircraft. So that's why I thought of the teleporting. I'm like, oh, then I can just get to the cool place that I want to be at and then get back.
Where are you located?
I'm in Santa Cruz in California.
Oh, you're not too far.
No.
I mean, not right down the street, but not too far.
Yeah.
I like Santa Cruz. It's a nice area.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, if you're ever down in this area and you want, my other business is a helicopter flight school, and we do tours and stuff. So you could get a helicopter experience.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
I did not know that about you. And learning how to be a helicopter pilot is really the thing that I want to do when I retire.
There you go. We'll teach you. That's it. Rogue Aviation. Check it out. Flyrogue.com. All right. Last question. What is your favorite part of the day and why?
That changes. But right now, my favorite part of the day is at night after my kids are asleep. They're little. They're 1 and 3. So it's like a big operation. But once they're asleep and everything is quiet, I'm actually writing a book right now. So it's like the time that I get to just be like in my head and try to like channel all that information out. So
oh my gosh. I need to learn from you, because when my kids finally go to bed, I have nothing left to give. It's my like couch crash out time. And I'm like, I really wish I could use this time to be productive, and I am incapable. I cannot do it.
Well, so the book writing thing is like a goal, right? And I was either going to have to get up early to make it happen or make myself do it after the kids were asleep. And the getting up early was not going to happen.
Yeah. Well, no matter how early I try to get up, the kids will get up earlier than me. They know.
Totally.
They know.
It's like, I'm going to get up at 5:30. That way I can do some exercise before the kids wake up. And they're like awake at 5:25.
Oh my gosh. I woke up in the middle of the night last night hungry. I was just like, I didn't have a big dinner. And I'm like, I just need a little snack. And it's like, as soon as I walk into the kitchen and it's like 2 a.m., one of the kids starts crying. And I'm like, it's like, they know. And I got to go in and take care, change a diaper or whatever. And
yeah.
They know.
They do.
Anyway. Well, you did well. The dark chocolate aside, you did well. Good job on the 3 random questions.
Thanks.
Let's get into.
I was terrified that you were going to ask me the question about like a favorite movie star to like be you, because I'm awful at those. I don't have one.
So bonus question. No. I mean,
I'll
you
think
kind of
about
asked
that
for
when
it.
I get back to you.
Okay. Good. I should do it where like at the end of every interview, I tell them who I think should play them in a movie.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of pressure on me, though. I don't know if I want to do that. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So, all right. Candice, tell us your origin story. Where'd you come from, and how'd you get to where you're at, and what are you doing? Just the short thing.
Yeah, the short
Your
story.
your life,
Yeah,
basically,
your
in
life
a
in a
nutshell.
nutshell.
There it is.
Well, I was born in LA and I grew up in Echo Park.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, when it was not the nice neighborhood that it
Not
is
nice. Yeah.
today. Well, I mean, it was nice for me because it was home, but we were, one of the only English speaking families around.
Yeah.
And we moved out to the suburbs of LA to Thousand Oaks when I was a kid. And so for me, there was sort of this disconnection between this like vibrant community that I grew up in and then moving into this suburb thing. And so there's always kind of been this tension between connection and authenticity. And as I grew up and got a little bit older and moved into my teenage years, I started really seeing how systems that we've created don't actually help us to achieve the results that they're meant to achieve. And I was really
Hmm.
angry about that. Like when I was younger, I was like a punk rock kid and like in the mosh pit and all that stuff. And went to college and I studied anthropology and philosophy of religion, actually. And so was thinking really deeply about justice and integrity and truth and all of these things. And then the recession happened,
Hmm.
and I was like, what is this world that I'm now going into that is completely different from what I thought it was gonna be?
Right.
You all told me it was gonna be one way and now it's broken. Like you're
Right.
reinforcing my my story.
Yeah.
Um but I decided to do some traveling and I lived very like paycheck to paycheck and I traveled around the country and I painted houses and I, did random odd jobs all over the place. And I ended up in Florida for a while where I started my first company and it was a travel company and we did bus tours. Um,
Oh.
and there were a lot of great things about that work. Like I learned how to be a business owner, kind of. I learned like how to do financials and do client relations. And I had a business partner who was helping me do all of these things. But ultimately, I wanted to learn more about business. And so I went back to school in human resources and I studied human resources through Penn State's online program. And I was
Okay.
the HR manager for a restaurant group while I was doing that. So I had the like academic, this is what HR is, and then the real world, like this is all the shit that goes down.
Yeah. Was that
Um,
fun? Was that fun to be able to? It was like, like I did that with education. I was doing my master's in education. I was teaching high school, and it was like kind of a living lab, right? Like you go to class at night or online or whatever, and you get theory basically, and then you get to actually try it out and come back and be like, yeah, that does not work, or that was amazing, or help me figure this out. Was that kind of the experience for you?
Totally. That was
Yeah.
exactly the experience. I loved it
Yeah.
so much. And I was
It was fun.
new to the work at the same time. So it was like I learned how I was supposed to do things, and then the real life stuff would happen. And some of the real life stuff is not something that you learn in school either. So
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It was a
Well,
real
and that's
master's in both senses of the word.
Yeah, and that's where you get to kind of like really, if you're doing that, you get to lean into if you have good professors, the wisdom of the professors, and go like, hey, you weren't teaching us this thing, but this is coming up. How do I deal with this, or what do I do? And fortunately had a couple good ones that really helped me figure things out and really changed my whole view of how to teach and how education goes. So I'm sure that was similar.
Yeah, same. And then also within HR, I had mentors that came up like around law, especially and around like benefits administration and things like that, where I just had no idea how those things worked and
Yeah,
learned it over the years.
I still don't know how those things work.
I know a very small sliver. And I am
I,
not a lawyer by any means.
Every time I start to think I understand benefits administration or any of those things, and then something comes up and I'm like, oh no, I had it all wrong. Like, I don't know. I don't understand any of it. It's a whole world that
That's one of those parts of my knowledge base where I'm like, someone will ask me a question. I don't even realize that it's a specialized set of information has just been in there so
right.
long.
Totally. Totally. Totally.
Yeah.
But to me, you're a magician. You can do things that you're a genius. I have no idea. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So
I'm just going to
that's
pull the
great.
rabbit out of my hat right here. Yeah.
So then that led you to what was next?
Yeah, so at the end of the time with the restaurant group, there were a few things happening. One was that I'd done all the things over and over and over again, and I didn't really want to be the one to do them anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Along with that, I was getting really drawn into local government and things that were happening in our community that were outside of HR, and I didn't have time to do that and do my job at the same time. And so I decided that I was going to start Fortress and Flourish. And the original idea was that I would be outsourced HR for small businesses and I would
Mm,
help them do HR best practices on like a really part-time level. And so I worked with 3 or 4 different companies in the beginning that way. And then I also worked with my city's economic development department. And that was really fun because I was focused on our downtown and downtowns have are there are challenging things around downtowns and creating
yeah.
vibrant environments for business to happen. And so that was fun work to do then.
Yeah.
hmm
Very cool. So and what is it today? What is it that you're working on today?
Yeah, so it's evolved now into this like fractional HR director role where I have a few clients that I'm working with really hands-on to help them with compensation analysis, handbook updates, HR auditing, like all of those things. We have basically one big project that we work on every quarter, and
Okay.
that's HR related that helps them get their infrastructure in place. And then we also help with, the employee relations things that come up. We do benefits renewal, we do performance reviews, like all of that kind of stuff. And then I also have a like 1 hour ad hoc support program too, where if you're a smaller organization, you just have HR questions every once in a while, but you don't get the right answers from like your payroll provider. We can actually talk through how to do it for real.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So help me out here because you're the punk rock kid growing up in Echo Park and now you're and feeling like the world's not fair and you want to and now you're doing HR. What's the link for you? Like where how is what you're doing today scratching that itch? Because it's got to be there.
Yeah, yeah. I actually spent last year doing a lot of research into particularly people's health and the workplace. So another part of the reason that I left working for other organizations was the pressure that was put on me to perform on
Yeah.
this like production output, like intense amounts of stress all the time. And in this particular organization, I was hiring 100 people a year as, like a single person. And then I was also basically managing the operations too. So that's a lot for like one person to be able to handle.
Yeah.
Um, and so what I like about the work that I do now is that, often when people are coming to me, it's because they want to be able to provide their employees a healthy work environment, like a place that's sustainable, that's going to be long term for them. But they feel like the systems that they currently have in place, or they feel like what they're supposed to do doesn't actually get them to that goal. And so we get to design things that will work for their team. So we might work on
Mm,
their workload, or we might be looking at their leaves of absence and
sure.
designing like a maternity or paternity leave or something like that that's more supportive for their people. Or we might even be looking at what's defined as full time. Like maybe it's not 40 hours a week, maybe it's 32. Um,
Right.
yeah, so it's those more creative uh, systems within work.
Yeah. Yeah. That's I can't tell you how helpful that must be for your clients because as a guy who has run small businesses and or even small nonprofits we work with and all these like it's the last thing you're thinking about when you're starting a business is, oh, I got to get all my HR stuff together. You're just trying to like make it happen, right? Hire whatever you got to do. And then to find out like, oh, there's all these things that I'm supposed to be doing a certain way. And I find my response, and I feel like most people's is, if I ignore it, it'll go away. And
Yeah,
and
let's
if I don't
avoid
deal with
that.
it, yeah, it's an avoidance thing, right? Like if I close my eyes, it's not there. And but that's just not the case. And I know, people can get into legal trouble and all that kind of stuff. But also more than that, I think it's, creating part of my background is organizational leadership. So understanding like creating the environment and the culture that you want is more than just a vibe and which that's important, and the way you treat people and all that, but having those systems in place to make sure that people are treated the way that you want them to, that your values are carried out, and to figure out how within the system you can do that, because there are a lot of, depending on where you are in California, there's a lot of laws and restrictions that there aren't
I
in,
mean, like
say,
everywhere in California.
yeah. But like, in Texas, maybe not so much,
Yeah.
or like I have one employee that lives in New York, and it's like there's a whole other slew of things there, and we've had to figure out, and it's odd and just different. Like I gotta pay this thing there that you don't have to do here, or this requirement or that kind of, it's just a whole different thing. So to have a resource who's on your side looking to help you out with that, do you find that people are receptive to that, or more you have to sort of talk them into it?
I find that people are looking for someone to be a thought partner in these things. Like an
Mm,
example is I work with most of my clients are nonprofits here in Santa Cruz, and one of
yeah.
them was going through a period of time where they got a lot of funding from a local school district to expand programming. And they were trying to figure out how to do the hiring for this in a way where it was going to be sustainable for this program that they need to deliver, but then also knowing that that funding might not be there the next year, have a way to like shrink it back again. And it ultimately
Mm,
ended up that the funding wasn't there for the next year. So we had this like plan in place to do the growth and then shrink it back to develop their management team into being better managers so that this executive director wasn't the only one who was managing like 25 people suddenly, and then to scale it back. And so, I mean, do you have to convince people? I feel like in a sales process, you have to be able to talk about
sure.
what's good about the work that you do.
Yeah, of course.
But ultimately, I find that people are either really into what I'm talking about or they're like, no, HR is a compliance thing and that's all it is. And if you need that person, that's not me. So,
Yeah. Got it. So you really want to be more of a strategic partner with
yeah.
people
Yeah.
and help them figure out how to grow and do it the right way.
Yeah. And keeping them compliant with all the things, especially
Yeah,
in the states where there are a lot of laws, like you were saying, Washington and New York. And if you have employees in DC and all these
sure.
places, yeah, Colorado.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's one of the things, that we like to highlight here and in our live sessions, and all the things with creating good, and it is really looking at like how do people use what they have to make the world a better place and to contribute. And I love that this for you, something that for I think a lot of people could look at and go, you know, HR, that's boring, or or whatever. But it because I can tell just by talking to you, it's coming from a place like you started it with where you were motivated as a kid, where you grew up, and there's it's you're not the typical HR person I talk to.
Yeah, no, that's true. I'm actually trying to hire an HR consultant right now, and I'm like trying to
Yeah,
find the right vibe, you know?
yeah,
Like,
yeah. Well, it's like accounting, it's like all the things that are
yeah,
they're so complicated and hard to navigate. And it's not just about, for somebody like me or a small nonprofit, especially, like it's not just about finding somebody who can help you with it. It's somebody who can, not make you feel stupid, help translate things, help you use these that, like understand what can be done and what you need to do, and keep you in compliance, like you said, but also how do you use these things to create the culture and organization that you want. With nonprofits, what are some of the biggest challenges specifically with nonprofits that you've found?
yeah. I think one of the things that I love about working with nonprofits is their values align for me. Like often what they're working on is something that I like if I could be multiple people, like I would work on that
Yeah.
too. So I work with like a rape crisis center and I work with a lot
Ugh,
of organizations that are focused on conservation. And one of them is our resource conservation district and they're, helping to deal with fire mitigation and things like that. And so
sure.
um what I often see in the sphere of nonprofits is people are providing a service to the community and there's work that goes into providing that service.
Yeah.
And that service is done with care and attention, and attention to the needs of the person who's being served. But that
Hmm.
doesn't always translate to the way that employees are being treated within the organization. And
Right.
so it's taking that, like, if I'm going to be trauma informed with
Mm.
with the people that are coming into my office, then I also am needing to do that to be integrity. I need to do that with my staff too.
Yeah. That's such an interesting point. I was one of the things that has kind of been a buzzword in the nonprofit community over the last, yeah, I guess 7 or 8 years has been ethical storytelling. This concept of ethical storytelling. Obviously, storytelling is what we do, and the majority of our clients are nonprofits, and and people out there trying to make the world a better place. And so we're trying to go. Of course, we want to be ethical. We want and looking back and going, gosh, the way that this was done for years really wasn't. It was really taking advantage of people and maybe highlighting them in their worst moments. And but we've also found that a lot of people, a lot of our clients will come to us and say, gosh, ethical storytelling is really important to us. And we'll go, okay, what does that look like? Well, we're not really sure. Like there's a lot of talk, but there's not a ton of definition. And so we've been kind of doing that for ourselves a little bit. But one of the things that I brought up in a conversation recently was, a lot of times what our clients will say is, okay, we're going to, instead of focusing on their clients, the people they're serving, we're going to focus on staff and their experiences. And I'm like, that's great. That's great. But we need to make sure we're still doing ethical storytelling with them, because their experience in this could be traumatic. You know what I mean? And we want to make sure that we're like anyone who we're putting out there, we're taking care of, and we're working with them to make sure their story gets told if that's what they want. And it's because part of it because it's all new, but a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I didn't think about that. Like, oh yeah, no, well, they
And
already
that's
work for
often
us.
what happens. It's like, oh, we need to do all this for the community and the way that we're telling our story publicly. But then it's like the employees get the short end of the stick.
Right. And in so many ways, because I think, small nonprofits, which I've worked for before, and I get it. There's so much passion there. There's so much, and there's this kind of you've got that, and you've also got on the kind of cultural expectation that a nonprofit's supposed to run on a shoestring budget, and all that. And so you've got the like, hey, we're not just doing this for the money. Well, no, not don't say just, because you're not doing it for the money, because you're not probably not paying them this super well, but like, oh, it's for the mission, so you got to give those extra hours. You got to do, and people are killing themselves because they're passionate until they're burnt out, and a lot of times no one's looking out for them. How does when you're dealing with HR and all that, like with a small nonprofit, do you kind of anticipate that and build systems in for that?
Yeah, and I think a lot of it starts with the leadership of the organization, and there are just small pieces of information that can be shared that can start to make a shift in the way that they're perceiving the requests that they're making.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I think it's so 6 in 10 Americans has a chronic health condition, and 4 in 10 Americans has more than one chronic health condition. And there's all this research that shows how stress, like high levels of stress that never get to decrease and are never resolved,
Yeah.
contributes to negative health effects. And the Surgeon General in 2021 released this paper that was all about like communities and health. And one of the findings is that we Americans have this thing that's called the American health disadvantage. That is that we are not as healthy as other similarly situated countries in the world.
Right.
And so I think a lot of this, we also have work responsibilities and norms that are not the same in other countries. And so I
Right.
think that has a lot to do, the way that we work has a lot to do with the way that we feel and our health and our mental health as well. And so
Yeah.
even just illustrating that connection can help a person to sort of think, oh, okay, does it make sense for me to just keep piling all of this on this one person? Like, And then also to look at there are market forces that are happening, right? As
Right.
the head of an organization or a leader in an organization, we're seeing what those market forces are, but we can be a way to actually insulate employees from those market forces and to help
Mm,
protect them. And I think that that is really the place where like a nonprofit or even a for-profit organization um, can have as a direction to go that'll keep their staff with them longer and keep them doing the work longer and getting better
yeah.
at it and feeling invested in the work that they're doing and continuing to care and not getting
Yeah.
burnt out and deciding to just like stop working for years.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Because that, I mean, we see that over and over again with nonprofits. The turnover rate can be really high. I mean, we've had clients where that has not been the case. We've definitely had clients where, I mean, over the years we've worked with so many different people from that same organization because
Yeah.
almost on a regular basis there's that turnover of like, oh, that person's no longer here. Here's your new contact point. Here's your, and you're like, wow. And
Yeah, like in
you know,
development and executive director and like the operations person and yeah,
yeah,
it's
yeah, and it's crazy because that these are passionate people, that they care about the cause, but they're just exhausted, and it's like no one's looking out for them, or not enough, not
Mhm.
enough to really take care of them. Is that like what do you do to specifically help avoid that? Like, is it really more about working with upper management and helping them understand, and then putting kind of things in place for that, or what does it practically look like?
Yeah, with a client this past year, the executive director had a goal of wanting to move the staff from a 40-hour work week to a 36-hour work week.
Mm,
But we did a survey and found that the employees felt that their workload was really intense and too high. And we are like, okay, we
mm,
can't decrease the number of hours they're supposed to work when they
right.
feel like their workload is so intense. So over the course of the year, we identified like what are the things that make sense to continue to do? What are the things that really need to stop? We did that in alignment with the grant funding that was coming in and which grant sources were continuing and which ones weren't. And we had also a look at their job descriptions and updated them and revised them
Mhm.
according to their current like role and responsibility rather than, what it had been a couple of years ago. And
Yeah.
when we did the survey the next year, the workload was like in the green, good to go. And so the executive director was able to reach that goal of reducing the work week down to 36 for a
Nice.
full-time person. Yeah. So that was a couple months ago. And we'll see, now we're seeing how it all like shakes out and how everyone adjusts. But so that's one way that we can implement it. And that's not the goal of every organization, right? Like it
No.
sort of depends on what they want to do. But yeah.
Well, I love that they set a goal and you help them figure out how to get there. My mind went about 10 different places with that because, um, and I think you're helping people get this, but like one of the biggest, I think, in whether it's for profit or nonprofit, things that leaders miss a lot is the fact that your greatest asset is your people. And we think about like, oh, our building or our equipment or our this or our that, if we just had this or that, but it's people, and that's where you need to be really investing that time and energy, making sure that people are taken care of. And sometimes that might even mean saying we're going to say no to some things that we really want to do and that we believe in, but so that we can make sure we do these things really well instead and take care of these people without killing them trying to do too much. And that is so hard to get people to agree to.
Yeah.
That's a tough one. So the fact that you were able to go in and show that, and then we're allowed to help kind of cut that back is really amazing, because I've tried to have that conversation with several organizations over the years, and it did not go great. No.
Yeah.
Uh,
The way that I framed it in the beginning was we looked at all the things. I mean, first of all, just looking at all the things that you do is a huge task to like get that
yeah.
all in a
Yeah.
list. So that was like a big commitment that they had to actually do that.
Yeah.
Um, but then we looked at what they wanted to continue, what they wanted to pause, and what they wanted to stop. And
Mm,
there were many that were in the pause category,
Yeah.
but they weren't a full stop for them. And so that
Right.
helped to sort of prioritize, like, okay, this is pausing. It may be that
Yeah.
we pick this up in the future, or it may be that we never pick it up again. But
Right.
yeah,
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, but they can decide if, maybe we get to a point where we're large enough where we can support that, bring on additional staff and actually do that thing. I
Mhm.
think that's the hard part, is going like, do we got enough money to pay 20 people really well, or pay 30 people not so well and stress them out?
Yeah.
What do we do? And helping people, leaders tend to get ambitious and excited about their new projects, and forget that, like, there's people buying that and that's going to affect them.
Yeah.
So
And
I love that you're out there doing that.
I do want to say, it's not like I don't like work, right? I
Yeah.
work in
Oh yeah.
HR, but I think that work is a really essential part of who we are. Like,
Yeah.
even if I wasn't being paid money, I would still be doing work. It might look different from the work that
Sure.
I'm doing right now, but that, it isn't about nobody should ever be doing work ever. It's finding the
No.
healthy balance between the productivity and then the time for rest.
Absolutely. And we are notoriously in America are notoriously bad at that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it was, I don't know. I read somewhere where they were talking about, like, in Europe, it's you work to live, and here we live to work.
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
you work so you can live, and yet here we're all about live to work so you can work. And that does, when you hear it that way, I'm like, oh yeah, that's very backwards.
And
You
it's
know.
interesting too, because you think about, I mean, I know you have kids and I have
Hmm.
kids. Like 70% of children live in a home where both parents work. So
Right.
it's likely that whoever you have who is an employee who has a kid, that their other person who's taking care of the kid is also working. And so, like,
Right.
and also the way that work systems and school systems, they don't really match up. I mean, we're recording this in the middle of the summer right now, so it's really
Yeah.
especially apparent, but like it also is just that way all year round. And so, like, how do we find, not just like within the organization, but within our connections in our local environment, ways to sort of like align these things so they make more sense? And I mean, more and more of us who are in this sort of middle age zone are starting to take care of parents who are ill and, all of
Hmm.
that too. So the responsibilities outside of work are significant. It's not like they don't exist.
Right.
And our
Right.
systems are sort of built still around like what was common in the 50s, primarily the like one person working and one person at home. And so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm so happy that you're doing what you're doing. Do you,
Thank you.
if you had one, like, big piece of advice to give to a small nonprofit that's starting up, getting started, figuring things out, what would you say?
I would say that be clear on exactly what it is that you're trying to do, and then aligning the work and the funding and all of the things around that.
Yeah.
And really clearly being able to communicate how, for example, each person that you're hiring fits into that larger vision and that goal.
Awesome.
Mhm.
Awesome. Candice, you're awesome. One last question for you, to before we close up here. What in your job brings you the most joy?
Mm. It is when I can help an employer do
Hmm.
a really technical HR thing that they have no experience in really well so that their employee is taken care of.
Nice.
And the
Nice.
employee feels good about the whole thing, and like
Yeah.
they were well informed through the whole process. I love that.
Isn't it great in those moments too, to help these business owners or leaders in nonprofits, executive directors, whatever it might be, realize, like, oh, this is worth doing.
Yeah.
Because yeah, it's a little, it might be some more work. It may not be the most exciting stuff to sit down and figure out, but, like, it really does make a difference, and it really does help people and help with mental health and with just all, well-rounded and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I had a
Yeah, it's
client that, they had this really tricky medical leave of absence that was happening, and it was because a person was having, like, PTSD symptoms.
mm,
And it was very, like, challenging legally and all of these things as well. But we were able to like move this person through in a really good way to where they felt like really supported on their return, and ultimately ended up like staying with the organization. And it was like very dicey, you know, it was hard
Yeah.
to hold all of the pieces of that, but it turned out well in the end. And it could have not.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I'm not
For
saying I
sure.
fixed everything, right? Like sometimes it still goes awry, but you know, it's
People are people.
yeah.
We do the best we can.
Yeah, and then we deal with that if that's what you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, wow. Thanks so much, Candice, for doing this. Where can the people find you and more information about what you're doing?
Yeah, the best way to stay in contact with me is through my newsletter, and we'll put the link in the show notes. And
Yeah, for
you
sure.
can also find it on my website, fortressandflourish.com. And
Yeah.
I'm on the social medias, but I don't spend as much time there as I should. So those two, the website and my newsletter, are the best ways.
There you go. There
Yeah.
you go. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for doing this. I'm excited for people to hear. I think we all kind of need that encouragement of, this is definitely worth leaning into, because it really, in the end, it's about taking care of your greatest resource, your people.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. This has been a great chat.
Of course. Thank you.
Creating Good with Matt Barnes is recorded at Rogue Collective in beautiful Newport Beach, California. It's hosted and executive produced by me, Matt Barnes. Post-production is by our amazing friends over at Fame, the B2B podcast agency. Writing is by Matt Barnes and Taylor Bolanos from Rogue Creatives. Creative direction and design is overseen by Corey Hill of Rogue Creatives. Theme music is composed and performed by Jared Atherton of Chapters. Huge thanks to our amazing guests for joining us this episode, and thank you to all of you incredible listeners for tuning in. If you enjoyed the show, and I would imagine you did if you're still listening, so don't forget to help us spread some good by giving us a good review. Preferably like 5 stars, lots of really nice words. It's very helpful. Also, tell your friends and subscribe so we can come straight into your potholes each and every time we have a new episode. Take the Creating Good pledge on our website at creatinggood.co. We'll catch you next time. This has been a Rogue Creatives production.